All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first ever Final Boss product, which is Boss Fight Episode 0, if that's even a thing. This is part of our pilot program that we're launching early in November instead of late November like the plan was, but that's what we're doing. I am Glenn, of course, and alongside I'm with my good friend AJ. How you doing, AJ?
How's it going, man?
It's going. It is a nice Thursday night into Friday morning for us. It's
Yeah.
happy Halloween. It's 1 a.m.
Jeez. Yeah.
For everyone else, this will be uploaded if everything goes right and I don't screw anything up. Should be November 5th. So we're a week early.
Just a little bit.
Only a wee bit. So just to start us off on this fine Friday night, what have you been playing the last couple weeks?
Last few weeks has been kind of sparse. I kind of took a little bit of a break to wind down before all the next gen stuff hits. So I've just been playing a little bit of multiplayer, a little bit of Avengers, a little bit of WoW, a little bit of Destiny.
A little bit of all.
Yeah.
What have you been doing on Avengers? Did you finish the campaign for that game yet, or no?
Yeah, I finished the campaign pretty quick. I've just been farming and maxing out characters for fun. Cause like right now it's kind of in an Anthem situation where like it's got some good stuff about the game, but they're gonna need to improve over time. So
Right.
I'm mainly maxing out characters to prepare for, whatever comes down the road.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Who's been your main so far?
Well, I was playing Thor pretty much the entire time, but I switched to Black Widow. And I didn't think I'd like her character at all, just kind of the way she was built as you play through the tutorial. But after playing her for a while, I'm like, geez, she shreds people.
I played as her during the beta for a little bit, and Captain America wasn't in the beta, so she was easily my favorite to use in the beta. Which is, she's kind of generic in the sense of she has guns and melee combat, but she's pretty fun from what I played, at least in the beta.
Yeah, I didn't expect to like more of a, generic pew pew, I have guns, I beat people up kind of character. But yeah, after playing her for a little while and kind of seeing the synergies that they put in her build, I was like, all right, well, this is actually pretty sweet. Like there was a decent bit of thought that went into how to make all of her kit kind of work together.
Gotcha. She seems pretty interesting for sure. Again, kind of generic of the pew pews, but they did some magic on her for sure. I'm excited to see how Hawkeye and Kate Bishop play as well.
Yeah. Yeah, playing her made me really think about how they're gonna kind of introduce the superheroes and how they're gonna make them feel unique. Made me more excited for Hawkeye.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'll probably get into that game once more characters and more content's out, because I feel like it's another, games of service game. So it's kind of that Destiny kind of feel where you want to have more content. So I want to play it for sure at some point, but I'm probably going to wait. I really want to play as Spidey, but I'm also nervous as how Spidey's going to play because Insomniac has spoiled me with Spider-Man. So I don't know if some of their devs are going to come over and help Square, or if Square's like, hey, we're going to do whatever we do with our characters and hopefully he plays well.
Yeah. I'm curious how they're going to implement that. I think he's going to be the character that's kind of a make or break for the game, where if they implement him poorly, it'll probably put a big stain on the game going forward.
For sure. No, I understand that. Right on. Well, you know what I've been playing. I've been playing a lot of Watch Dogs over the last at least 2 days now, 2 nights.
Yeah, plowing right through it.
I sure did. I beat it, 15 hours. Definitely don't think I played the game like I was supposed to. This game is super marketed as, hey, you could recruit anyone, play as anyone. Like, all of these characters are your characters. You make your own team. I've recruited so you have to recruit one person right away. Like, you pick your main person, I guess, in a word. And then after that, so I'm playing on Uplay's launcher. They changed it to Ubisoft Connect for PC, I think is what it's called. I don't know. They have a membership on there called Ubisoft Plus, and you can pay $15 a month and you can play all their games. I didn't realize this until I was playing Watch Dogs, is they give you the big boy edition. So I was playing like the $129 version, I think, for just the $15. So I had the special like season pass, not season pass characters, because those guys aren't out yet, but they're part of that bundle where you get like 4 special ops right away that have unique weapons and skill trees. So I literally picked one of those guys and I used him for, I don't know, maybe 14 of those 15 hours, I think. I played as a single op, and then I used maybe 2 other people, and then I think I recruited maybe 4 other people. But that was it. Like, I seriously, I used a total of 3 or 4 ops. No, yeah, 3 ops. We'll go ahead and say 3. And I used one of them for almost my entire playthrough. Really pissed off. I wasn't playing with permadeath because I didn't trust myself. Although I only died twice in this game, so I could have trusted myself. I didn't die until near the end of the game. And I'm really upset on the last mission. I died with my main guy, Gabe. So I lost him. And he didn't perma-die, but he was non-playable for like an hour. So I had to use a different guy to finish the game. And I was pretty upset about that.
That's a pain.
Yeah, I don't know. The gameplay in that game is super fun. I don't have any plans to review it, but I don't know. The gameplay's super fun. The story at times it was very interesting. Some of the parts, some of them were very cliche, and I could have lived without, but I feel like that's also Ubisoft. I feel like they do their own thing, but they also have all of these predictable cliche characters or things that happen in the world or whatever. So that's just Ubisoft stuff, which whatever. I feel like Ubisoft at this point is becoming another Bethesda, but makes their games differently and have their own engine and whatnot. But I don't know. I will probably keep playing that game over the next week, just getting ready for next gen, because I'm pretty bored. Don't really have a lot to play. So I'll probably keep playing it just to mess around with some side stuff. I really want a whole team of grannies. I'm really bummed that I only found one, kind of. Like, she's not even a granny. She's like maybe mid-50s, almost 60s. Yeah. So, I mean, she's older, but I want my grannies. You know, a whole team of them is what I want. That's pretty much all I've been playing, though. I've played a little bit more Warzone this week. I was finishing the Halloween events. That stuff was really cool. I think nighttime Warzone is 1,000% better than daytime Warzone. I don't know if you got to play any of that, but so good. They added a zombies mode, which was super cool. If you died, you became a zombie, and then you had a chance to become a human. I really liked that mode. Some people didn't, but anything else? Oh, I've been playing Phasmophobia as well. I started that game up last week. That game was a mistake because...
Why?
It's super spooky, and I got screwed the first time I played it. I was playing with Austin, and he decided it'd be fun. It was him and I learning how to play while we were waiting for Jacob and someone else to come play with us, because we wanted the team before. So him and I hopped in. We're like, hey, let's learn the controls. Let's learn, how this game even works. And he thought it would be funny to just walk out of the house and close the door on me, which was not a problem. So I'm looking for him, and I'm like, hey, man, where are you? We're not talking in Discord, so we have the game audio. And, I turn on the walkie-talkie. I'm like, hey, dude, where are you? And he is just laughing. And I'm like, yo, where are you? This demon's going to come kill me. Like, where are you? And he's laughing his ass off. And all of a sudden, the door is locked. So I can't leave the house. Turns out the ghost came and locked the door on me. So I'm sitting in a corner begging for my life as Austin is just laughing, and he is crying. Like, he's literally crying from laughter. And I'm like, dude, unlock the door. This isn't funny. Like, I'm going to die in here. And he was like, I didn't lock the door. What are you talking about? And I'm like, you can't lie to me. Like, the door literally is locked. I cannot unlock the door. I found out after playing that game more and more that the ghosts like to lock the doors if you're left alone. So he was indeed telling the truth. He did not lock me out. He just shut the door on me, and he's a terrible friend is what that led to. So
that's awesome.
We played again last Saturday. I was home alone for a couple of days last weekend, and I made the mistake of playing that game with them at midnight, I think it was. And yeah, I can't play that game at midnight when I'm home alone ever again. So it's a pretty fun game. I hope I can play more of it. I've only played probably like 5 hours, 6 hours. It can be boring at times because sometimes you don't find the ghosts, and it takes a lot longer of a time to find the ghosts or find clues. So it can be a little boring here and there, but for the most part, pretty fun game. And I hope to play more, and I hope it gets updated more. I think in VR that game would be really fun, and I know there's a VR mode, but I'd probably have a heart attack if I tried to play VR. So I barely could do PlayStation VR with Resident Evil 6 or 7, not 6. 6 is awful. We will discuss about that game way later in life. That game.
Why you got to bring it up?
I didn't mean to bring it up. It just happened. That game sucks though. But Phasmophobia, that game's good so far. It's good, $13.
Fair. Yeah, I've heard good things. Becca's been playing it a lot, so it's up there on one of them. I need to actually sit down and chill with people, play a few rounds.
Yeah, I mean, four people is ideal. You could get away with 3. You can get away with 2. But after what Austin did to me, I'm pretty
just
terrified.
Scarred now.
Yeah, like I refuse to play 2-player on that game now. If I don't have at least one other person, I more than likely will tell you no when I don't want to play.
Jeez.
But the school is pretty fun. The school is a lot of fun when you have the full four team. You can split up into 2s and talk to each other on the radio. And I don't know, when you get into the groove of that game and you can figure out the ins and outs, because I'm still very new, but I was playing with this one of Austin's brother's friends, and he was like level almost 40 or something on that game, and I'm like level 3. So it was super easy playing with him. He's like, oh yeah, here you do this, you do that, and super easy. So I'm sure eventually once I get into the groove and continue playing that game's going to be a lot of fun to actually play. But
not too bad.
Well, you and I have 2 weeks until next gen. When this goes
coming
out,
fast.
Everyone will have a week until next gen. Is there one game specifically that you want to start the most, or at least play first on next gen?
I'm kind of torn between Demon Souls and Miles Morales, honestly. Like, Miles, I want to play, but I wouldn't feel too bad playing it second because Spider-Man's kind of recent. Whereas Demon Souls, I haven't gotten to play in years, and it looks amazing. So
doesn't look like the PS3 one anymore.
Yeah.
That's understandable. Yeah. I think those two are... I feel like a lot of people are looking at both of those. Obviously, I hate the Souls games, but we all agreed that I will be buying it and I will be playing it. I believe me, you, and Austin will be playing it that weekend if everything goes okay. I think we want to play that Saturday or Sunday, so I know I'll be free. I'm sure you'll be free. I'm sure Austin will find time at some point in those days, so I'll try to play that game by myself. The plan for me right away is on the 12th to hurry up and come home, ignore everybody, lock myself in, have snacks, have water, and then just start playing. I'm probably going to start Spider-Man first because that's the game I probably freaked out the most about when they announced PS5 lineup.
Yeah.
And I want to see how fast I can platinum it. I platinum Spider-Man in 2 days. The plan is to platinum Miles on the 12th or sometime on the 13th, so I'll count that as a day. I mean, unless we want to count that as 2 days, then whatever. I guess I'll eat it and move on with my life. But I'd like to count that as 1 day, but whatever. I guess I can't be picky. So we'll see. I saw the trophy list that they posted on Twitter last week, I believe it was. They didn't show all the trophies, but they showed, I think it was called a partial list. And
yeah,
some of them look a little bit more challenging than what Spider-Man was. So I'm a little bit nervous that I can't do that in a day. I was very confident until last weekend that I could do that game 100% in a day. So we'll see what happens, but that's the plan. I mean, if it comes Saturday and it's not platinum, then oh well, I'll hop on some Demon Souls, hate my life for a good couple hours, and then move back on to my love. And then at some point I want to start Assassins. I don't know. I was going to buy it day one, but I might wait until I'm done with Spider-Man and then play Demon Souls for a little bit. I might buy it a week later, especially with Cyberpunk no longer being a week later. So
that was one that recent news kind of made me want to hold off on Assassin's Creed a little bit. Kind of bummed.
For the game or for Ubisoft?
I mean, a little bit of both. How they're treating how they're treating their backwards compatibility and just like leaving one of the core Assassin's Creeds only on last gen, or specifically only on PS4, and all the other core titles will be available. Like, I don't know, it's just scummy behavior.
I didn't read the article, but I think I saw a reply that it was Syndicate and the Chronicles. I don't know if that's
Yeah,
true or not. I don't remember.
yeah, it's Syndicate, and then the side scrolling ones. The
Gotcha.
side scrolling ones, I understand they were made by a smaller studio, so maybe they're not a priority, which makes total sense. But
Right.
they're literally porting every other game.
Except for
They're just
Syndicate.
leaving Syndicate, and like that's super frustrating.
Which is
Having
weird to
that
me.
gap in the library.
If you're gonna leave one behind, wouldn't you want to leave Unity behind?
Unity?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, wouldn't you leave the one that
Like,
damn near sunk the franchise?
Syndicate didn't do anything like crazy. I mean, I know people still liked it. I mean, it wasn't everyone's favorite, and I feel like that Assassin's Creed fan base is very back and forth on what games they like and don't like. But Unity was definitely like, whether you were an Assassin's fan or not an Assassin's fan, you knew that game was bad and you knew that game was
Yeah.
broken. Ubisoft knew that game was bad. That was the first game they offered refunds for. That was
Yeah.
insane to me to be all over Twitter at a young age, which, I mean, young age was like 6 years ago. But it was crazy to see. I've never seen a game company issue refunds like that up until that game. They did it with another game, I believe, and then Bethesda with Fallout 76, which was a mistake also. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm curious to see what Ubisoft. I don't know if they've said anything since this morning with that article, so I don't know what their plans are. I also have been thinking, now that I have this Ubisoft Plus thing, I will probably try Valhalla on my PC because it comes out on the 10th, and I have this subscription until the end of November. So I'll probably try it on the 10th on PC and just see how it is and see if I even really care for it. Because Origins I liked quite a bit. I thought Origins was pretty fun. Odyssey I wanted to play because I love the Greek mythology. I like all that stuff, but it came out with everything else. I was very invested in Red Dead. I was playing a lot of Call of Duty. Spider-Man was also out at that time, so I was playing the DLCs. 2018 was just super packed at the end of the year that I played 30 minutes of Odyssey and never went back. So I'm curious. I know this one's going to play like both Origins and Odyssey because it is the new RPG elements. So I'm curious to see. I don't know. After playing Watch Dogs, I feel like I've come to the realization, and I've always kind of known this in the back of my head, but Ubisoft games all kind of play alike. And I have a feeling that Assassin's Creed Valhalla is going to play just like Legion, except in the Viking era and not in the future with hacking. So
Yeah.
I'm curious to see how that goes. So we'll see. I'll probably try it on PC first and then decide if I want to actually buy that game or just keep the $15 thing, play it for a little bit and move on.
Yeah, it was a pretty big bummer to me because that thematically Valhalla is the one that I've been waiting for a long time. I've been waiting for a Nordic Assassin's Creed and Japan Assassin's Creed. Like
Yeah,
those
were the
two
that
were,
high on my list too.
and we finally are getting the Nordic one, but I don't know, just them leaving random one of games behind on a previous generation, and I don't know, just makes me kind of want to hold off. Maybe I'll try this one, a month or two down the road on PC through the service rather than actually paying for the full game.
Right.
Kind of a disappointment, but it is what it is.
Yeah, that's understandable. I think it's a kind of a weird thing for companies, especially switching over to next gen, of trying to figure out what you can bring over and what you can't. I obviously don't make games, so I have no idea what goes into anything, but I know a lot of people are giving flack to Dirt 5 and Yakuza 7 because of their save file transfers. Because so far, most game companies have come out and said, hey, all your stuff will, saves will transfer back and forth between current gen and next gen. But for some reason, those two companies don't know what's going on, I guess. So I don't know. I'm curious to see what's going to happen with that too. I won't play either of those games, so I don't really know or care. But
Yeah. I mean, that was one that kinda irritated me, especially with Yakuza. I love all the Yakuza games, but I don't know. It's one of those things where, like, I get it. There is some level of extra work and extra effort that needs to go into utilizing some of these features, but at the end of the day, the majority of game studios are doing it.
Right.
So, if the majority are and you're choosing actively not to, it just looks bad on you. Doesn't matter how you phrase it.
Yeah, I really hope Ubisoft seems to be they do a couple bad things and then they try to fix them. I feel like sometimes they do a okay job of doing that. So I'm hopeful that maybe this weekend they'll change their mind and start working on something. Again, I don't know what goes into trying to make a game backwards compatible, but hopefully they can do something for at least Syndicate. I mean, like I said, the Chronicles one, those make sense because they're side scrollers. They're not really, they have the Assassin's name, but they're not the Assassin's Creed games that everyone knows and loves. So
Yeah. I
hopefully
mean,
they fix
they're
that.
awesome. I playing through them, I really enjoyed them, but they're not a traditional, Assassin's Creed game. So if those got
Right.
left behind, whatever, it's not a big deal. I think they were on the PS3 360 gen, weren't they, as well?
I don't remember. The earliest sighting I saw of them, at least physically, were Xbox One cases and a
Hmm,
PS4 case, but I don't
fair.
remember because that
Yeah, I
was
mean,
also a weird transition. Like the last game I remember for sure that I'm still not even sure how that game ended up on PS3 and 360, but Metal Gear 5. I don't understand how that
gosh.
game ran on those systems, but
Yeah. Well, it didn't. That's the
well,
short.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those things where I mean, I get it with the smaller titles, the ones that were made by smaller studios that may not be there anymore. But I mean, Syndicate, it's one of the core games. So one of the things, I don't know, maybe I'm a weird collector, but I like having my full collections of games, like having all of the Yakuza games, having all of the Assassin's Creeds and all the Resident Evil. Like I loved having all those on my PS4. That's one of the main reasons why I will never sell my PS4.
Gotcha.
But
Is to have all of them.
moving up to the PS5, like now in that folder, however the PS5 UI is laid out, I'll be missing one random Assassin's Creed for no other reason than they just decided not to
Got
port them.
lazy. No, that
It's
that definitely sucks for sure. I, I hope they figure something out. I mean, even if it's not at launch, hopefully Ubisoft, hopefully they get their stuff together and they figure it out for. I mean, December, January, maybe. I mean, just something. I mean, don't take time away from other big projects you're working on, but I'm sure you can set
yeah,
aside like 10 people. You guys have 12 studios, right? They got a lot of studios. I
not
mean,
crazy.
they got some teams. They can spare like 5 to 10 people to work on. Hey, make sure this game works on next gen, and let's move on. Let's not make silly mistakes anymore. Like let's just figure it out.
Even if it's something that they can't do right now because they don't have the resources, even if they were to just say it'll be coming at some point down the road, like
Right.
that's fine. But I mean, if I end up having all of the games on my system except for that one, that's just irritating.
Yeah. No, it's
Especially
understandable.
considering I've literally been waiting for them to remake one so I could do like a historical playthrough of all of them again. But
Definitely.
whatever.
I hope they remake one soon because I haven't played one since one came out. So
I'm honestly shocked it wasn't announced as like a pre-order bonus with Valhalla because that's been the
yeah,
pattern is they've given away the other ones, as perks with the next one,
yeah,
or
because
they've
they
given
did
discounts or they've released them in similar times. Um,
that Ezio collection the year that they took off, and then with Odyssey they had Assassin's Creed 3 remastered. Yeah, it's
yeah,
a little weird. I wonder if something happened maybe just in terms of development problems. I mean, they've been working. I mean, they said they've been working on this game since I believe Black Flag, which was a last gen launch title.
yeah,
So, I mean, they've been working on it for a long time. And I believe they said all 12 studios have touched their hands on it, which that's mostly why I want to play this game because I feel like this could be that big Assassin's game that's super fun and I like Nordic stuff, but we'll see what happens. I mean, the next RPG that I obviously want to play is Cyberpunk, which I feel like that's on everyone's list, but I don't want to take anything away from Assassins if it ends up being at least a decent game.
yeah. Well, like the hidden fear that I have is that Ubisoft is kind of pulling a Capcom, and they're like they'll come back, everything will be good again. Like Assassin's Creed, it was bad for a chunk of time there. It was like 3 or 4 years where Assassin's Creed was like really hit or miss, and they kind of came back to form with Origins and Odyssey. Well, I shouldn't say came back to form. They reinvented their formula
Right.
and kind of they came back to prominence in some way. I kind of feel like they might be going the way of Capcom, where they're using an older engine and a lot of their games are feeling a little samey nowadays, that maybe they'll kind of be just meh for a few years until, people stop buying as much, and then they'll, update
Reform.
their engine, update their planning, give some new people some, writing direction and creativity, and let them do a little bit of the creative control over the games.
If only Bethesda did that.
Like yeah, jeez. Seeing the difference between Capcom, just the Resident Evils before the RE engine to the Resident Evils after, like it's night and day the difference that modernizing how they were developing the games made on them. And like you look at 7 and then the remake of 2 and 3 and just how different they are compared to 6, it's insane.
And also, they're good games instead of 6.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They're actual games rather than really, really crappy FMVs.
Hey, man, I told you, one of these days we will finally play Resident Evil 6 together, because we started it for a little bit. We both, I mean, we already hated it, but replaying it and like reassured me that, man, this game sucks. But it can be, I mean, that game can't be fun, right? It can't be a good game, but it can be fun with friends if you're playing it and just fucking around and having a good time, and just, like if you just accept that this is Michael Bay and that this is not Resident Evil, this is some weird action take, and we just wanted to have fun. Like, I feel like that game, if it didn't have Resident Evil in the name, probably would have been okay. It definitely wouldn't have sold. Like, no one would have bought it, because I don't know what you would have called that game. But yeah, I don't know that game. So
I mean,
someday
I'm
we'll
sure
talk about it.
there's a certain amount of inebriation that could happen that could have, encourage a fun night of playing that game. But oh my goodness, it's
It's
torture.
it's pretty rough. It is pretty rough. Something I wanted to touch on about Assassin's Creed before we move on, even though this is not an Assassin's Creed podcast, but I was talking to Austin about it. I believe it was last week, and we were talking about if we both liked the switch to the kind of new role playing element game style that Assassins is now with Origins and Odyssey. I don't remember his take. I think he prefers the traditional, run around, sneak around, assassinate people, can't swim in the water, the janky 2007 game that was Assassin's Creed. But I think the problem that Ubisoft ran into is they were trying to compete, and not really compete, but they were trying to be similar to Activision, where Activision had a new Call of Duty every year. But the problem with that is they were on a cycle. Like you had Treyarch, you had Infinity Ward, and then eventually Sledgehammer. So you had a new Call of Duty every year, yes, but you had different teams working on those games every single year. And Assassins, I felt like, 1 and 2 were good games. Like 2, I feel like across the board is usually people's favorite. I feel like Black Flag gets tossed in there here and there. Some people really liked 3, but I feel like 1 and 2 were really good. I personally really liked Brotherhood. I don't know if you liked it or what your take is on Brotherhood. I thought Brotherhood was pretty good. Revelations was interesting. I don't know what they were going for. I think fans were like, "Oh, we want Altair back," and they're like, "Yeah, how about Old Man Altair and Old Man Ezio?" Like, well, what is this? What is happening? I don't want both of them. Like, what is going on here?
I think they kind of went through a story that a lot of other game devs have gone through, where they hit on something with Assassin's Creed 2 and its brother games, where 1 was decent. It was a cool idea, but it kind of caught people off guard because it was advertised as, an old school game where you're this almost Prince of Persia figure. but when it actually came out, it was this weird pseudo sci-fi, pseudo old school, you know, weird assassination game that a lot of people liked. But then with 2, they kind of developed this formula, and then they just did that formula way too much. And the whole thing became just a pattern, and they were rotating amongst their internal studios, and it was good for a while, but then everyone saw what happened when they got to like Black Flag, Unity, or Black Flag, Rogue, and then Unity. When they got to that era and how everything kind of fell apart. And I think the reinvention with Origins and Odyssey and going down the more RPG route was a good path for them to go. And it changed things up, but I don't think it was original is the problem. Like, they went down a path that the other Ubisoft games were going down. Like, they didn't just create a new system or a new way to play a game. They just started doing what Far Cry was doing, and they started they started doing what all of their other properties were doing.
Yeah, I'd say it's almost like a safety net, kind of. Like
Yeah,
they didn't see the formula living up to what people really liked. Like, you can only ride on something for so long, and I do agree that you can't, don't fix something that's not broken. I feel like the Assassin's Creed formula was still fun for most people, but I feel like they saw all these games that were open world, RPG, like selling really well, and they probably sat there and they're like, hey, we make Far Cry. We can do Assassin's Creed like Far Cry.
Yeah, I think their solution when they got to that point where they realized it was becoming too formulaic was their first solution was Syndicate, which Syndicate was a really awesome idea, playing as the 2 different protagonists and kind of having this dual character storyline. And that started to bring them back. People had a lot of respect for Syndicate, even though at the time people hated Assassin's Creed as a franchise.
Because of Unity.
But then when they, because, but then, I mean, from that point on, their solution wasn't, let's do more of what we did in Syndicate and let's make that better. Their solution was, well, what if we tone it down and we just cut back, like take 20% of the Assassin's Creed out of it and replace that with 20% of Far Cry. And like that, it worked, and I enjoy a lot of those changes, but now every Ubisoft game feels the same to me. Far Cry is the first person version, Watch Dogs Legion is the future version, Assassin's Creed is the time traveling version. Like, they all have the same general gameplay with their own unique spins on things, but now they're feeling too samey.
Yeah, it's kind of like what I brought up earlier about Watch Dogs Legion kind of feeling like I already knew that Ubisoft games were very much, hey, this is Ubisoft, this is our games, play them. But playing Legion, I was like, man, like these games all kind of feel very similar, except that I will give props to Legion in terms of not the collectibles, but so in Far Cry you have all the towers you have to destroy and do all these, super open world kind of activities that you typically get in these games. Assassin's Creed brought over that element when they switched to Origins and Odyssey. They also had, hey, here's this camp, go kill this leader, go take care of that guy. I will say that Watch Dogs Legion at least had very different open world activities. Like, each district had the same things. Like, there was this one called Take Out the VIP. One of them was a drone, which was a pain in my ass to destroy. The other one was like an actual dude in a different district, but they all were different. So like one of them was, I just had to take a picture of like propaganda and upload it, and that was it. Or destroy this car. Like, there wasn't any, hey, go to this camp, destroy this camp, kill the VIP, move on. Hey, go to this camp, destroy that camp. Like, it wasn't super traditional, Ubisoft. Here's our open world game, have fun, do all the same things that you've done for the last 10 years. But I do feel like when I play any other Ubisoft game, I have the same problem that I've had with Bethesda games, and why I don't play those is I feel like they're just not moving on. Like, they're not finding new things, which is fine. I mean, if people are still buying them and sales are still good, why ruin that business decision, and why jeopardize ruining that name that you guys have built for yourselves? But man, I could definitely go for I said this to Austin and a couple people in Discord last night. Playing Watch Dogs Legion makes me really hope at some point that Ubisoft just gets their stuff together and gives me a goddamn Splinter Cell game.
Yeah.
I need a Splinter Cell game. And playing Watch Dogs Legion, in terms of gameplay, it's all there. Like, if that team could make a Splinter Cell game and get some decent writing, because the writing in Legion is okay. It's not the greatest, but I've definitely have played worse. But if they can get a good writing team in there and give us a really good story, like, just give me old man Sam Fisher. I don't care. Give me super old Sam Fisher. Make it like this really intense open world, super big game, and then just call it quits. Like, I don't know what their plans are. They obviously like to put Sam Fisher in everything now, literally all of their games except for making another Splinter Cell. But playing Watch Dogs Legion and just I did all of my missions stealth. Like, even if I shot people and like I kind of had a small like war zone or whatever, I was using the silenced guns so no one heard me kill anyone. Also, NPCs in that game are not the smartest. They're just kind of there. But man, playing that game is like, dude, give me an open world Splinter Cell at this point. Like, just please, Ubisoft, give me a Splinter Cell game again. I miss those.
Well, and that's kind of the opposite path that I want to see them go. That's why I say they're kind of pulling a Capcom, because their solution to some of their properties becoming bad was make everything kind of the same and then differentiate them by like 20%. And just put this layer of icing on them that's unique. You know, Far Cry has its own unique things, but some of them are in Assassin's Creed, and you know, some of those things are in Legion. It's one of those things where it's like, you know, pull back, revamp everything. Your character models are looking very last gen. Like, update your character models. Though, you know, graphically, now is the time for that enhancement. And then gameplay wise, maybe not with any of the core, you know, Far Cry, Assassin's Creed, and Watch Dogs, maybe not with one of the big three that they have, but maybe bring in a fourth, like a Splinter Cell. Don't do an open world. Don't do a gigantic game. Do a focused, tiny story.
I'm fine with that too. I think playing Legion made me want an open world, but
you know, you're Sam Fisher and you have a mission, and it's not roaming around the countryside, some, you know, Ghost Recon style thing. You know, and taking over bandit camps and stuff like that. Have it be more surgical, where you have a mission and, you know, it's dropping you in linear pathways and telling a deep story that really kind of invested in the character that Sam Fisher was. You know, go the opposite route of what every other game you have is doing.
I'm fine with that too. Like, I think Splinter Cell Conviction was really good, or Conviction, sorry, is really good. I didn't play Blacklist. I think I'm actually going to play it this upcoming week, since I'm still just bored and waiting for next gen. That is on that Ubisoft Plus thing, so I'm probably gonna try it. I've heard back and forth things on Blacklist. I think that's when they tried to do something kind of open world and some people didn't like it. So I do like me some linear games, and I will absolutely I'll take any Splinter Cell game at this point. I would prefer it to be more linear, kind of like its old games, but if they went open world for one, that's kind of the Ubisoft formula nowadays, I feel like. So I could see it. I just want a Splinter Cell game. I mean, anything but mobile.
It's the hole in their catalog that they've been needing to replace.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I don't know. Hopefully soon we see something from them, because man, I could use a good Splinter Cell game again, especially with I'm also curious to see if they haven't been doing it because Hitman's back and Hitman's been doing really well. I feel like that might be a concerning issue for them, that a lot of people have always compared the two. I mean, obviously very, very different games in terms of gameplay. I mean, obviously, yeah, they're stealth games and you take out people, but very different games. It's just that simple mind thinking of gamers that that we sometimes do as we're playing games. We're like, oh, you know, Hitman and Splinter Cell, what's the difference? When there's actually a lot of difference. Like,
well, and one of the big things is, you know, they've said after Hitman 3, they're taking a break from Hitman for a while, and they're gonna, you know, push some other projects that they've had. So, I mean, after Hitman 3, you know, the year after that is a good time to start, you know, pushing for Sam Fisher again, and could be a good time where I hope we see something rather than him just guest starring in, another of their games.
Rainbow Six. I was surprised. I was looking at the season pass characters for Legion, and I actually thought Sam Fisher was going to be one. I had a whole plan when I was thinking about this podcast. I was going to announce it to everyone and be like, hey, Sam Fisher, calling it right now, coming to Watch Dogs Legion. But they already announced the 4 characters, so unless they have a surprise guest that they're going to like release for free or $5, then you heard it first here that Sam Fisher's coming to Legion. But I don't think that's going to happen anymore. I had an idea because he's in Siege, he's in whatever that mobile game is, the Elite Squad or Squad Elite, or I don't know. I have no idea what that mobile game's called. He's not in Brawlhalla. I thought he was. I don't think he is, actually. I don't know what else he's in. He's in something else that they own. It would be pretty funny if they put him in Valhalla. It won't happen.
Put him in the place where he fits the absolute least.
Hey man, they're just getting that marketing up that way. When they announce one, they're like, "We've been teasing you guys this whole time. We even put him in a Viking era game."
And I mean, part of me thinks that them putting him in all these other IPs is, they're leading to something. They're not just keeping him around for no reason. Like I've heard, and keep in mind, this is completely unsubstantiated, but there's rumors that there were issues with licensing and all the Tom Clancy stuff. There's a lot of weird legal issues with certain aspects of it.
Yeah.
And there were rumors that there was a lot with Sam Fisher and Splinter Cell that kind of made complications with making a sequel. But with them throwing him in every other title now, like I can't help but think they're hinting that he's coming back. They just, maybe it's a big, huge game that's a ways off, or it's a big thing that's not meant for right now at the launch of a new gen. That's more of a 2022, 2023 kind of thing.
Well, especially because, correct me if I'm wrong, I think they're doing a VR game with him, right? I think that was the other one. Or are they doing a different? What is it? What is their VR game that's coming out? Assassin's Creed?
I do not know.
They have a VR game coming out, and I thought it was Splinter Cell. Netflix is also doing a Splinter Cell show, right?
Are they? I had no idea. I hadn't heard about that.
Man, hold on. We have technology. We have Google. I have to make sure.
Do you see that Assassin's Creed and Splinter Cell are coming to VR? Not really sure if they're full-fledged games or are they just like smaller VR experiences.
I think they were for the launch of what is Facebook's new headset again? Oculus
Quest 2.
Yeah.
I'm in that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they were supporting that, and they announced the Splinter Cell and the Assassins. I don't know what degree those games are going to be. Like, I don't know if they're just like, hey, play us for 25 minutes and move on with your life, or if they're like full-fledged VR titles, such as I think Medal of Honor. EA's doing that same thing with that system as well. But yeah, I thought for sure they were doing those two. And I gotta look up this Netflix, because obviously they're doing Assassin's Creed show or movie or whatever they have. I guess they just said original series. So yeah, show. For some reason, when I sent you that link, I thought it was an animated show. I'm almost positive it's not going to be an animated show. But fair. I guess who knows? Netflix Splinter.
Yeah, looking up the VR information, it doesn't look like there's a ton said about them. Their phrasing makes me think that they're probably smaller experiences. But yeah, Assassin's Creed and Splinter Cell are coming to VR. So,
and I was right. I sent you this back in July. I think we briefly talked about it. Yes, Splinter Cell is getting an anime series set at Netflix. 2 seasons, 16 episodes.
Fair enough.
So that is also coming. So I mean, Ubisoft, obviously, Assassins has been their big go-to besides like Far Cry, and Watch Dogs has kind of been the least of them. Like, obviously, the last Watch Dogs was 4 years ago. The last Far Cry was 2 years ago, and the last Assassin's Creed was 2 years ago. So I feel like maybe those legal things have gone up with Tom Clancy, with Sam Fisher, and everything that is Splinter Cell, and maybe they're just,
Yeah.
instead of doing the Ubisoft thing of here's our game, they're just here's Sam Fisher in everything, TV show, VR game, uh, Rainbow Six Siege, mobile game, and then I'm kind of glad that it. I mean, hopefully it's in the works. I know a lot of people want a Splinter Cell game. I know a lot of people have been waiting. So hopefully we get a cool next gen title. That would probably be, like you said, probably 2022, 2023, which makes the most sense, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm all about it. I look forward to it eventually returning. I mean, I don't have much faith it'll be super soon, but I mean, we're starting a new gen. Like, I don't expect anything huge for the next few years outside of Cyberpunk.
Yeah, which makes sense. I mean, I feel like a lot of people, when they look at next gen, they always are expecting really big titles. And granted, we do get big titles. Like we have Spider-Man coming out launch day for PlayStation. We have Demon Souls. I would count that as a big launch title, or a big title. A lot of people enjoy the Souls-like games. Also, just really quick tangent. Fromsoftware on their Twitter showed a screenshot of Elden Ring, and they said that more information will be posted soon, I believe is what they said. They said that they hear people talking about it, and they know that people want to hear about it, and they said, we'll say more later. So,
All right, call me intrigued. I have a little bit of hope that will eventually come out, unlike most of the other things George R. R. Martin is involved with.
mm-hmm.
But
Well, so supposedly, again, I didn't find the article, but someone replied to that tweet saying just fire. They said fire George R. R. Martin. You guys can just finish this game yourselves. And the guy replied to him saying that Fromsoftware just did an article, and they've confirmed that Martin's part in the game is all completed. I don't know if that means that FromSoft is just waiting for the right time to continue working on it, or to find a good release date, or what they're doing over there, or if that guy was just kind of BSing on Twitter, as Twitter is the home of the BS. So I haven't looked it up, but I
but
don't know.
then again, it's not inconceivable that his part has been done for a while. Like,
Right.
it's not like writers need to be there the entire time if they're not also performing some other task. So, a lot of the times he may have written a lot of the lore or character base, storyline. He might have gotten that all completed years ago, and they've just been working on it. So,
Yep.
either way, I'm kind of intrigued. I hope it being, of some renown in terms of writing and, the company making it, that it'll probably be pretty solid.
For sure. I obviously, me. I don't. I suck at FromSoft games, so I have a hard time playing them. I really do like the level design. I think FromSoft has some of the best level design I've seen in at least the last 7 years. I mean, obviously Dark Souls and even Demon Souls came out before this current gen, but I would say especially over the last 7 years, they've had some really good level design, and I just don't think that anyone can really match. There are a few companies that do really good level design as well, but FromSoft makes me watch people play their games, and I go, wow, it looks really good. They have really good levels. I want to play it. And then I play them, and I'm like, yeah, I suck at these.
Well, and to be clear, like, I'm not great at any of the Souls games. Like, I'm thoroughly mediocre at them. I don't like a lot of the clunkiness about the games. The main reason I like them is they remind me of Super Nintendo games. Like, they remind me of Nintendo and SNES games, where sometimes they are unnecessarily hard. And I miss that about video gaming. I miss Super Ghouls and Ghosts and Goblins, and games, old school Castlevania, like stuff that would kick your butt at certain parts and make you legitimately frustrated. That's it. Maybe it's some weird masochistic nostalgia that I have for them, but they're great in terms of, like, typically when you fail at a Souls game, the game is not arbitrarily punishing you. Like, it's not enforcing some weird rules or changes to the level that's just screwing you over, you're failing because you failed. You screwed up.
Right.
Your dexterity was not up to par, or something you did was wrong. You dodged at the wrong time, you misread a telegraph from a boss or something like that. That's what's intriguing about those games to me. But I mean, I'll be the first person to admit there are times where I've booted them up, played them for 30 minutes, and then turned them off because I'm just pissed.
Right. No, I understand that. I've been there. Um, I want to enjoy playing them, and I had sometimes Dark Souls 1. I believe I bought twice, and my second time playing it, I got a lot further in. Um, and I really enjoyed playing it and getting through bosses. I think that game is sort of weird in terms of it's not super unforgiving. It's pretty forgiving when you fail, and when you beat a boss, it's super satisfying, and you want to keep going.
Yeah.
And they do a really good job at that. So I'm curious to see how Elden Ring goes. I don't mind Martin's writing. I didn't watch like any of Game of Thrones. I know a little bit about the books, but Martin takes his time with his writing for sure.
Yeah, that's what we'll call it. That's a
Yeah,
very polite political way to put that.
yeah,
Takes his time.
takes his time. So I'm excited to see what FromSoft and Martin can do with Elden Ring. I'm hopeful for that game. I think that game is actually the one FromSoft game where I'm like, ooh, I'm ready to try that one out. I think that could be really good, or it could just be a mistake and maybe they messed up and FromSoft will never bring outside help again. I don't know.
I don't think there's really any chance of it being that bad. I think it'll just be a new take on Souls. Hopefully, it's a more of a universal Bloodborne-ish type game where it's got its own unique style and trappings. It just has a different lore, or maybe it actually has lore that you want to care about more than you do in the Souls games.
Yeah, I think that's my one. Besides not being too good at it, I think that's my one kind of concern of Souls games are you have to do a lot to understand the lore. Like I've known people that know the game and they know the story and they can tell me everything, but for me, just being an outsider, not really knowing a lot about FromSoft games, just hopping in, I'm like, I have no idea what the story is. I'm just killing these giant bosses and moving on.
Yeah, that's one of my number one things that turned me off about Dark Souls. I couldn't play Dark Souls for a long time, or Demon Souls, because I don't necessarily like it when lore is fed to you just through like breadcrumbs and Easter eggs. I think that's, while some people can see it as immersive, I find it to be kind of like lazy and unguided. Like it feels like I'm just aimlessly roaming in this world, and then once in a while I'll find a thing and it has a little bit of text on it. Like, I don't know, it doesn't feel very fulfilling to me, but you know, they've I think that's something that the other games that they've made outside of the core Souls games are improving on. Like Bloodborne and Sekiro are way better at that kind of stuff. And I think Elden Ring is their attempt to make a Souls game that's more like a traditional Souls, not like just Bloodborne or just Sekiro, but make it have some powerful writing behind it. Who knows if it'll pay off? I hope it will, but
I
we'll
hope
have to
so
wait.
too. I hope so too. Um, what do you think is the thing that you're most excited for about next gen? Could be console, could be games, could be companies doing stuff, whatever. Could be controller stuff. I don't care. Whatever your most anticipated thing that you're looking forward to.
I mean, accessibility is probably the number one thing. I think a lot of people, they look at next gen and their initial thought is always like more stuff and more graphics. And like that's just not how it works. Like graphically, games are not going to jump an insane amount going into this generation. Like the step from PS2 to the PS3 generation was huge.
That was the jump.
PS3 to PS4, I mean, it was bigger, but it was more more narrow than it was from the PS2 to the PS3. This generation, I think, is going to be more about accessing your games and playing them in multiple different places, playing them in different ways, having legitimate accessibility in mind for people who play games differently. And it's also going to be more about, in terms of just sheer graphics or looks, I wouldn't say graphics necessarily, because I think that's a little too broad, but it's going to be more about like polish. Like your games are going to be, more finely tuned, higher frame rates, ray tracing. Everything is going to look better, but it's not going to look like a completely different world. Whereas, like, if you look at an early PS3 game versus a PS4 game, that's a massive difference.
Absolutely. Yeah, I do agree with
I
you.
guess,
I
I
think.
guess like refinement would be the best word I would use.
Mhm.
Refinement and accessibility.
Yeah, I think I agree with the accessibility. Something that, I mean, obviously, Last of Us Part Two, no secret for you and I, we both really like that game, and I think something that Naughty Dog did really well at was the accessibility options. They did
Yeah.
a lot that not even I could even understand,
Yeah.
because they put so much in there, and I think that's a really good thing. That a lot, again, kind of that simple mindset that all of us have. Like, gamers are very intelligent, and we know what we're talking about, and we know what we want, and all these things. But I feel like that's something that all of us overlook. We don't always think about other players. We don't always
Yeah.
think about how is someone going to enjoy this game. How are they going to be able to play it?
And that's one of those things where that's why I tried to use accessibility in a more broad term in terms of how you actually access your games and how you interface with them. Because, like, accessing them on a cheaper console or a more expensive one or a streaming service, or just how you actually interface with the controller. Like me, I have no fingers on my right hand. So for me, like, I don't consider myself necessarily like in great need of a lot of accessibility options, but for certain games, being able to remap a button here or there is a huge deal, especially like when a game has like a really inconveniently placed jump button or something like that. That's it's awesome to have little options like that. Or for people you don't think about, there's a lot of colorblind people, there's a lot of people with just, differently abled in various ways that, unless you experience it or someone who goes through that daily, you have no idea how much those things can completely change a game.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that is probably the thing that, especially after Last of Us Part Two came out, I saw a lot of people on Twitter, uh, kind of giving props to Naughty Dog, which is understandable. They absolutely deserve the props for that and for everything else that game is. But I was really happy to see how many people were actually applauding them and saying, "Hey, like, good for you for adding these things into this game," because not a lot of games, they had I think it was over 66 plus options, I believe. There was an
Yeah,
article
it
I
was an
read. I
insane.
don't remember what it was. It was definitely in the 60s as far as I remember. Could have been more. Maybe I'm just, being too happy about Naughty Dog. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it was 66. I'll look it up later and fact check myself and leave a comment yelling later on. But yeah, I think that's something definitely to look forward to. I also agree that graphically, I think games will look maybe a little bit nicer, like a little bit more polished, like you said, but nothing crazy. Playing
Yeah.
Watch Dogs Legion definitely showed me that, because I feel like I'm also spoiled after playing Last of Us Part Two. That game looked like a next gen game. I don't know how that game released on a PS4 and still looked as good as it did on a PS4.
Yeah.
And I don't know how good games are going to look on a PS5 or even an Xbox Series X.
Yeah.
Obviously, time will tell next year, the year
Well, I
after.
mean, we partially do just because of the current generation of graphics cards. Like,
Right.
we know to an extent where it's going. It's going to be less about a game being a night and day difference like it was from older gen to newer gen.
Yep.
And it's going to be more of like, you know, if you imagine a game where you have like the lighting of a Naughty Dog game, the lighting and shading and color grading of a Naughty Dog game, but you have the character modeling and rendering of one of the newer Resident Evil games. Like, if you could combine those two environments, it would be amazing. And that's kind of what I mean by refinement, of we're going to see more games that, maybe the character models don't look crazy different than they used to, but the lighting and the level design is way better. Or, maybe they used to have crap character models and now they have characters that actually match the environments that they're being placed in. So
They look like people.
yeah, it's a lot more of bringing everything up to kind of how your mind imagines it, and like taking out a lot more of the uncanny valley effect that you can get when you see a character that looks like it's standing out, or you see an environment that looks like it's popping away from the character because the lighting isn't hitting. That's the kind of stuff where I think we're going to see a lot more homogenous settings in that regard. A lot more games are just going to raise the bar in general, but it's not like you're looking at PS1 to PS3.
Yeah, nothing
It's not
too
looking at
crazy.
block characters or stick figures versus MGS4. Like
It's true, very true. Yeah, I think we're gonna see. Obviously, I'm also excited. I mean, I feel like every gamer is excited for the SSDs and finally having games that load a lot faster. It, from fast traveling to just loading screens
man,
in general. I mean,
I
something
as someone who's oh, go ahead.
something about Watch Dogs Legion that also made me excited to play on my PC was I was watching Ghost Robo play on Xbox One X, and the load screens even on that game, that was like the console that everyone was reviewing on because not everyone had Series X, not everyone had PS5, like embargoes weren't up, all that stuff. So everyone was reviewing on the One X, and load screens even on the One X that was the most powerful system, I guess now the Series X's or whatever. Even the loading screens on that game with that system were ridiculous. It was insane. And playing it on my PC, I had loading screens when I fast traveled or when I first opened the game, but I mean, the longest I sat on the load screen was loading into the game. Once I was in the game and I did any kind of fast travel, it was just super quick. Like within seconds, like 1 to 2 seconds, I was back in the game, moving around, good to go.
Yeah, as someone who's had an SSD in my computer for at least 5 years, probably longer. I can't really think of when I bought the. It's probably been more like 6 or 7 now, but like I've been using SSDs forever now, and having them on a console, playing on a nice, giant ass TV in your living room, and everything loading smooth, jumping back and forth between things, like, oh, I cannot wait. That is one of my number one features, and one of the things that disappointed me about last gen so much was, the consoles. You could upgrade your Xbox or your PS4 with an SSD, but the operating system wasn't designed to take advantage of it. So you could get a slight improvement, but you couldn't get the giant improvement that you would see on one of these newer consoles or on your PC.
Do you have a favorite part of last gen?
That's tricky.
I, I
I
don't
mean,
want to refer to games necessarily because I told you earlier that I have a plan
yeah.
with games of last gen. I mean, if it is a game or a game feature, I mean, you can go ahead and say it if you want.
I mean, my favorite part of last gen is very, very vanilla, and it's not a game specifically or anything. My favorite part of last gen was digital downloads.
Oh,
Like
okay.
being able to have all of my content digitally on my console, or on my external hard drive connected to my console. That I mean, that's behavior I'm used to from being a PC gamer for years.
Right.
There's a lot of people that are super resistant to like digital purchases and stuff like that, saying, well, if you don't physically have it, you don't actually own it. And it's like, I mean, nowadays you don't own games. Even if you have a disc, you don't own the game. You have a disc that gives you
A
a
file.
CD key to play the game.
Yep.
It's unlocking the game. So it's, the digital purchasing side of it. That's something that, being a Steam user for like 15 years, I don't know, 12, 15 years, something like that. Like
Too long.
that's something that I was accustomed to and I love. I hate having to get physical products and swap them out, and a disk drive blows on a console, or you have to wait to do a bunch of other things because you're swapping out physical media and stuff like that. And I'm just done with that. Throw it all on a hard drive, let me swap between it. That was hands down my favorite thing. And I mean, it existed on the 360 and the PS3, but it wasn't widely adopted. You know, people were still very resistant back then and even into the early days of the PS4 and Xbox One.
Right. Yeah, I when I first started the current gen, I guess it's not last gen for another 2 weeks, but when I first started current gen, I was using physical discs, and I was always the kid that I liked to have a collection. If like my friends came over and I was like, look at these games I have. I also really liked cover art, and I still really do like cover art. I just like art in general. Um, but that was definitely something I switched over. I want to say in the last 7 years, I've had maybe at most 30 physical games at most, and I've played well more than 30 games. I definitely switched over to digital for sure. Like that was my main source, and will continue to be my main source, especially being on PC. Like I don't want to have, hey, I can buy this game on my PS5 and put a disc in there. Like no, I'm just gonna keep it all digital. Like it just doesn't matter. The only time I've done physical is if it's a game I'm kind of iffy on, and if I want to try to get some money back from it, whether trading it in or giving it to a friend or something. If I just want to get something back for it. But there hasn't been a lot of games like that anymore, and I'm also trying not to be as picky and just trying to find things like if I'm iffy on a game, I'll watch people play it, I'll take in some opinions, and then decide for myself.
Yeah.
And I
In the
definitely
age of
think
in the age of Twitch, like you don't need that, you know?
yeah, oh for sure,
You can watch someone play an entire game and decide if you want it or not. You don't need to worry about buying it and hating it and giving it away to a friend.
yep. And that's definitely what I do nowadays. If there's a game that I'm kind of iffy on, I'll watch someone on Twitch or some YouTube and just kind of pick out some things. And if I'm ultimately like, oh, you know what, I think I will like that game, then I'll end up buying it. Whether it's through like a membership service like the Uplay thing or the EA Play, or if it's, hey, I'm gonna just give you guys my $60, please don't suck. Uh, I definitely switched over the digital. I think you're the one that finally convinced me to switch to all digital. And then I ended up switching my dad and my brother-in-law into digital gamers as well. So everyone's digital over here. So it's definitely the way to go. That's something I switched over to. I think my favorite thing of last gen is kind of a cop out, and also something that was fairly new, like 2018, was crossplay. I feel
Yeah, I mean,
like
two for console, sure.
yeah, for console at least. And I think that's something, especially me growing up as a console gamer and having friends that, I was on Team Xbox up until 2013, and I was like, yeah, you guys are on PlayStation, you guys suck. But, it still would have been cool to play with those guys. Like, I'm starting to think, like, obviously crossplay has been beneficial for me and my friend group over the last 2 years as well. But I want to know what it's like to be a kid right now. Like, well, be pre-COVID, being a kid and being at school and hanging out with your friends and being like, hey, let's go home and play Fortnite, and it doesn't matter if you're on Xbox or PlayStation, PC or Switch or phone, you all can play together. Like, I want to know what that world would have looked like for me and my friend group back in middle school playing Call of Duty. Like, it would have been super fun to, hey, you're on PS3, I'm on 360. Who cares? Let's just play.
Yeah.
I think it's a really cool feature. I'm excited that almost all the major titles have it now. I believe Apex was the last. Well, I mean, obviously there's like Rainbow Six Siege doesn't have it, and there's some other games I probably can think of later on that don't have it. But I'm excited that that's becoming more of a normal thing. I know Destiny's going to have it next spring, I believe, is what they said, sometime next year. Because
They're working to
fall is cross-gen play. So PS4, PS5 can play together. Both the Xbox families can play together. Yeah, sometime next year. So yeah, I'm excited to see. I think that's also something I guess I'm kind of excited about for next gen, but that's already a thing that exists. I'm just excited to see it kind of continue and see what they can do with crossplay. Also, I think cross save is super cool, and some companies are still learning how to do that. So
yeah.
I'm excited to see what happens there. But that was probably my favorite thing outside of certain games. Obviously, we'll discuss later for for games of the generation and stuff like that. But yeah, I think that was probably my favorite thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see that transition from an option to like a standard feature. that's one of those things where it's like, nowadays I don't buy a game and hope that maybe they made it crossplay. I assume that they did, and if they didn't, I'm disappointed. And I'm excited for the next generation to kind of solidify that as like, if you're an online multiplayer game, cross save, cross progression, cross play, they're all standard features.
Yeah, that should be at the top of like, hey, what do we not mess up?
Yeah.
That check one.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it doesn't matter where I'm playing it. If you want me to interact with your community and you want me to engage and spend money and buy DLC or buy expansions, like that needs to be a part of the package at all times.
No, for sure. I understand that. I was actually super surprised EA's Star Wars Squadrons game had crossplay.
Yeah.
I fully expected it. No hate on EA necessarily, but I expected it to be an EA game, and I expected, hey, PC plays with PC, PlayStation plays with PlayStation, Xbox is with Xbox, tough love. And move on.
Yeah.
And I was super surprised that game was crossplay. I also could not play that game. I tried to play it on PC, and I feel like to get the real experience, you need either the flight stick or a VR headset or both.
Yeah.
It's a pretty
Yeah,
game.
it's one of those odd ones that, it's a great feature to have, but that game had a bunch of other issues too.
Yeah, for sure. I told Austin it looks really pretty. Like I really enjoyed playing it in terms of looking at it, but the flying and the looking around was too much for me. And maybe I'm just bad at it. Maybe it's just a game that just wasn't meant for me. But it was pretty rough.
Knowing you for this years, that is the likely scenario.
Yeah, more than likely. Yeah, that happens. I'm starting to get bad at Vigi games now. I'm only good at a Slut Feud now. It's the old age.
Shut up.
I'm just gonna move on to a few little, I guess, rapid fire questions before some more big topics. Do you think PS5 will have better exclusives than the PS4 did?
Yes.
Do you think?
Should I elaborate?
I don't think so. I think that's a pretty standard thing. I'm the same way. I feel like the answer is just simply yes. The PS4 absolutely killed it. It's not a surprise that PlayStation's PS3 era it had some really good games, but not a lot of people were playing it because they did what Xbox did for the Xbox One, and that's mess up at your first EA. Good Lord. E3 press conference of, hey, here's our system for $600. And everyone said, cool, I'm not buying a PS3. When's the Xbox coming out?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a pretty straightforward one of like, there's no reason to think that anything's going downhill in that department.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I remember you and we talked, I don't know how long ago, sometime this year, sometime maybe last year, we talked about what Xbox was doing over there at their studios and trying to, we know that competition is everything, like whether like, yes, console wars are stupid and there's no point to, as Paris said, the Emerald Stallion or the Green Stallion for Xbox fanboys. Like there's no need to have fanboyism, but you can be a fan of something and realize the flaws in other systems. And I think one thing that I was let down by last gen with Xbox is they didn't have a lot of exclusives, and I feel like PlayStation nailed it. PlayStation had one exclusive that was like okay, and that would have been The Order, and that was more of like a demo. And I really hope Ready at Dawn at some point makes something else with that game franchise, which they probably won't, but I would like to see something in that series come back. And then the other one for me personally, I know some people enjoyed it, but Last Guardian I didn't care for too much, but I also have never really played those styles of games, and I haven't been in that world before, so that would be kind of a flaw to me, but I know people enjoyed that game and enjoyed that franchise in that studio. But then you look at Xbox and they had Halo Master Chief Collection, which cool, you remastered all the Halos and gave people what they wanted. You gave us one Halo game on the Xbox One, which was Halo 5, and we can talk about that all day. Then you gave us barely 2 Gears of Wars. You gave us Gears 4, and then, you know, at the year before the next gen consoles launch, you gave us Gears 5. Forza obviously was a big one. I feel like if you look at anything as a positive for Xbox and their exclusive games are the Forza games, because PlayStation for some reason just dropped off Gran Turismo until Sport came out, which super weird to me. I didn't grow up on PlayStation, so I don't know how big Gran Turismo was, but I know that a lot of people enjoy those games, and that was like the racing game to play. So I'm not too sure what happened there, but PlayStation just kind of dropped off and said, yeah, we don't care about racing. And now they're coming back with Gran Turismo 7, and hopefully that game's good.
Yeah. That's one of those things where it's a super niche audience. Like a racing game, no matter who makes it, no matter if it's a Forza game or Gran Turismo or Need for Speed or any of them, they don't compare to actual AAA games. Like comparing Gran Turismo to like, The Last of Us or to Halo is like comparing Madden to those. Like,
right.
like they're not in the same tier. I know they're AAA in terms of budget and sometimes in terms of sales, but they're more like AA games.
No, I agree. I'm hopeful that Xbox does something this next gen with their exclusives, because it's cool that they are doing the pro consumer move. They're really focused on Game Pass. They're really focused on their hardware. But for me as a gamer, I mean, I'll buy your system if you give me a reason to. Like, I need games to care about and to play. If you don't have any games that interest me, or any games at all for that matter, why would I play your system? Why would I play your games? I mean, you don't have anything. And then that was my problem with Xbox this last gen is, I was on that Xbox fanboy forever. And then 2013 happened. I played Last of Us Part 1. I switched over to PS3, realized that gaming is much more than just, like Xbox or PlayStation or Nintendo or, whatever system you play on. I just realized that games are games and you should play them and enjoy them. But Xbox dropped the ball and PlayStation ran away this generation. And I think they will keep up that momentum going into the PS5 era. And I think a good sign of that is right off the bat, we have Miles Morales, which you can call it a Spider-Man reskin. You can call it whatever you want. It has new gameplay mechanics, completely different from Spider-Man. It's a standalone game. It's not like a DLC or, it's not a sequel yet.
I mean, if a Call of Duty every year is a new game, like Miles Morales is a friggin' technical leap.
Oh, absolutely. And, I'm super excited for that. I think Ratchet and Clank looks really good, and I'm actually super excited to play that game. That was a game that they announced, and I was like, okay, I'm not a big fan of Ratchet and Clank. I never really played any of them on PS3. I played the reboot on PS4, and it wasn't bad, but, it wasn't like I need this game. But they showed off the new one, and I was like, okay, I need that game. I want to play that game. And that's launch window, which could be December. No, I don't think it's December. I feel like they would have said that already. Could be January, February. We know Horizon Forbidden West is more than likely next spring to summer, probably, I would assume. They didn't give us a release date, I don't think. Did they say 2021?
I believe they said 2021, but
something they
I'm
said.
not entirely positive on that.
And then obviously God of War. And I think that was my biggest worry the last time we talked about momentum and we talked about competition, is I was worried that PlayStation might sit back on their exclusives and just say, hey, we killed it the last 7 years. We're going to take a breather because Xbox isn't going to release anything. But that's clearly not the case, because Spider-Man's coming out. Like I said, Ratchet and Clank, Horizon's coming out. God of War is next year somehow. I don't know how, but that game's next year. And, obviously delays can happen. But, man, I want that game next year. And that would be sweet if it is actually next year. And then you look at Xbox on the other side, and Forza's in early development, which is super weird to me. That's a very high-selling game for them, and it's not even in launch window, probably not even half of next year. It's probably a fall game next year, if we're being honest. If that. Maybe spring 2022. Halo Infinite, which I'm sure we'll talk about more and more over the next couple of weeks, but whatever's going on over there with 343. We just talked about before recording this, The Medium coming out in December is their only exclusive for this year, and that game comes out the same day as Cyberpunk at the moment. So no one's gonna play that. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Fable. I'm excited to see Fable return, but we saw
In
nothing besides. Yeah, I mean that game's like 5 years away. We saw nothing except for the title card and a little fairy flying around. Like we didn't get anything, and it kind of bums me out because I do want Xbox to do well so that PlayStation can continue to make good games. Not that they would stop. I think that's been decided this year, next year, that PlayStation, regardless of their competition, aren't going to stop. But I don't know. I kind of wish Xbox would give me something to be excited about.
Yeah, that's one of those things where, in my personal opinion, I think the console wars are done and have been done for a long time.
Same.
We're entering a new generation where, I mean, in terms of like fanboyism, console wars will always exist because people always want to pick a team and pick a side and fight for it.
True.
But in all reality, now all the gaming companies, the big three, are all playing a different game. Like Sony is playing we make our proprietary hardware and our badass exclusives, and we have our own little ecosystem that's awesome. Microsoft is playing get it anywhere, stream it anywhere, play it on any of our boxes. But if you don't care about our box because we don't give you a reason to, you can play it on PC, play it on your cell phone, get xCloud, like play it anywhere. And then we have Switch, which is physically play it anywhere, like take the console itself wherever you want. So it's, we're entering a phase where I don't really think it's a console war. I think it's a strategy war. And it's not even a war. It's just different strategies. They're all playing a different game now.
Yeah, I feel like Xbox is going after cloud gaming, so they're fighting Google Stadia, which is pretty easy. I haven't read all that stuff on the Google Man or whatever that article was. I didn't read any of that yet because I don't care about Google Stadia. I also don't care about cloud gaming too much. It's just not. It's never been for me. I tried that PS Now thing with PlayStation 4, and even with good internet, you still have that weird streaming lag, and you still have technical issues that just are the hardware and the Wi-Fi meeting up. And I am happy to see that pro-consumer things are coming, and I think it's part of that accessibility that we talked about, that it will be sweet to see cloud gaming in the future become something. But also, everyone's always talking about, like Xbox is doing really good stuff. They want you to play games on your phone. You have to have really good Wi-Fi to play some of those games on your phone. I highly doubt loading up No Man's Sky on your cell phone on like a bar or 2 bars of Wi-Fi is going to work.
No,
I think that's something that people don't understand about xCloud or just cloud gaming is, yeah, it is consumer friendly in the sense of, hey, I can just hop on my phone. I'm at a friend's house. I want to play this game for the next 30 minutes or hour or whatever. But if you're somewhere that doesn't have good Wi-Fi, then it's worthless. You can't play it.
But we are entering the next generation of wireless communication as well. Like Wi-Fi 6 and 5G is a completely different level. Granted, neither one of them is going to be fully adopted for, 2 to 4 years, and it's going to take them, 5 to 10 years to settle in as, bigger standards.
Yeah.
But I mean, like right now with my connection, I can play Stadia or xCloud perfectly. They work great. Once in a while, I'll get a lag spike here and there.
For sure.
But I mean, that's no different than me playing World of Warcraft or Diablo 3 online and getting a random lag spike.
Yeah.
So I mean, that happens. I mean, that's honestly, that's one of the only criticisms I have of the next gen consoles is the PS5 is Wi-Fi 6 enabled, and the Xbox Series S and Series X are not, which seems confusing to me, seeing as they have the streaming service, or the better streaming service, I should say. Right. PS Now has gotten a lot better. If you haven't played it since it launched, like it was a garbage fire when it launched. It's decent now. It just doesn't have as big of a library as other streaming services. But yeah, that kind of blew my mind. I was just reading a little bit of the spec info about that today, about how the Series S doesn't have, or Series X doesn't have Wi-Fi 6, which, I mean, I guess it doesn't matter. By the time Wi-Fi 6 is more widely accepted, I'm sure we'll have, the PS5 Slim and the Series X. I don't know, Series X, 1S, blah blah blah, whatever their new naming convention will be. But
I'm kind of curious as to why they kept Xbox. Well, no, never mind. It is just Xbox Series X. No, it's not Xbox One. Never mind. It's just weird. Their names are super. I don't mind Xbox Series X if your last console wasn't called Xbox One X. If you didn't just release that console, Xbox Series X and S are fine. They're pretty cool names. They're like, whatever. I mean, I'm glad that PlayStation keeps it simple and they're like, hey, this is our 5th one. Welcome to PlayStation 5. We're gonna just sell you games and play our system instead of here's our fancy PlayStation 9X21, like some weird fancy name.
I mean, naming conventions don't matter in the grand scheme of things. The only issue I have is PlayStation is fairly clear. If you get a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, that the bigger number, the better, typically.
Yeah.
My issue with the Xbox is now between the Xbox One X, Xbox One S, Xbox Series S, and Xbox Series X. It's not terribly confusing, but that's for people like you and me who are big into the community and the tech. For the average mom or grandma or dad or uncle that's looking to buy a Christmas gift,
they're gonna have no clue.
And I think that problem is exacerbated a little bit with the fact that the Xbox One X and Series X lines all use the same UI now, and they all, are essentially sharing the same game pool for the next 2 to 4 years.
And
I think that kind of makes
the same for anyone that's buying physical.
That it makes it a little more confusing on the Xbox side, where there's not like a clear delineation between them. But there are also bonuses to that where you can see like transitioning from one to the other is a bit easier if you're in the know. So, I mean, there's ups and downs. I think it's poor marketing, but I mean, service wise, I know the few times that they do actually have an exclusive, I'll have Game Pass, at least for a month to try it out. So, that's kind of what I mean by them playing different games of like, I have my PlayStation for the exclusives, and that's where I tend to play with my friends the most. But I'll pick up Game Pass on PC when the next Halo comes out, if it ever comes out.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree with you. I didn't know real quick talking about Wi-Fi. I didn't know what Wi-Fi 6 was until like 3 weeks ago when we got a router that was Wi-Fi 6. Had no idea what the hell a Wi-Fi 6 was. I mean, obviously I know what 5G is, and I feel like most people know what 5G is, but I didn't have a damn clue as to what Wi-Fi 6 was.
I mean, it's super early. It's not going to be widely adopted for years, but it's one of those things where like I would have liked to see the console that has the badass streaming service be Wi-Fi 6 off the bat. That would have been nice.
Which is weird because, again, I feel like they're very pro-consumer, at least in the next 2 years. So kind of interesting. I don't know if they're going to have like a little port that you can buy for like $50 or something. Like, hey, here's your Wi-Fi 6 little port cable. Like, I don't know what Xbox's plan is.
They won't. It'll just be whatever the slim model is or whatever they choose to call the revision models that'll happen in 2 to 4 years.
True.
Whatever they choose to call theirs, that one will just be Wi-Fi 6 enabled.
I'm curious to see what both the companies do because we're used to, hey, new consoles, you have 2 years to play them, and then you have a slim model. The Xbox Series S is already super tiny, so I don't know what a slim model of the X is going to be, like somewhere in the middle of those two. And
I mean, that's kind of a confusing one with the Series S specifically because it's like a half-step console.
Yeah, it's like action, but not.
I think both of them have given us 2 variants to go with, but when we get to the point where we're going to need a slim model, I think it's probably going to alternate where you're going to get like the Series X Slim and you're going to get the PS5 Slim, and then you'll get the Series S Slim or whatever revision and the all digital PS5 Slim a year later. And it'll be kind of like cell phones where every 1 to 2 years it's kind of alternating which one. But they're always going to keep the scheme of like having the slightly more expensive premium pro model and then the slightly cheaper one.
We're gonna have so many SKUs. It is gonna be. I mean, we already have 4 SKUs going into next gen, and it's already gonna be a mess.
And we don't even have the Switch revision yet. Like
Which
there's
is,
a new Switch coming in the next few years.
and that's what I'm most excited for because as you know, I got rid of my Switch because I wasn't playing it, and there was literally no game that was coming out that I was like, oh, I need my Switch. And as soon as I got rid of it, Nintendo was like, hey, Glenn, we have Mario Maker 2 coming out, Luigi's Mansion 3, Super Smash Bros. Like everything that I would have wanted on my Switch came out as I got rid of it.
Hey,
And then I just
I
never went
warned
back.
you. I warned you you would regret it. I warned you and told you not to.
I know.
But that impatience, man, it got the best of you.
But now I'm like, hey, all of them are sold out for obvious reasons, but all of them are sold out. I wonder if we're going to get a new one next year, and I'd be down to buy a Switch Pro or whatever they're going to call it next year. I'd be okay with that.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, I hope it's next year. Realistically, I see it being more of a 2022 thing. I think a lot of that stuff probably got pushed a little further back due to COVID-19.
I think so
Um,
too.
I just assume that their intention was probably holiday 2021, but I assume it's further back now.
Right. And then I guess the last thing we'll talk about with Xbox, because Xbox is doing weird things, and you and I are not huge Xbox people. I mean, you and I both agree we'll play them on the PC with Game Pass if they look good or whatever. But you and I don't have a need to spend the 500 on a Series X because there's nothing coming out that we want to play on a Series X. So why would I spend my 500? But what do you think Xbox's next gen plan is? Because I feel like at least for the next 2 years, they're going to continue to push the cloud gaming. I feel like xCloud is going to be a very big thing. Obviously, Game Pass, everyone is saying it. It's super cliche by now, but I'm going to go ahead and say it on here too because everyone is literally saying it. Game Pass is probably one of the best values in gaming of the last few years. Like it's something big that a lot of people enjoy, and it's super affordable. I've seen in the last couple of weeks people have talked about premium plans for Games Pass if they decide to change it from the $5 a month to, hey, do you want all of these games plus DLC for $20 a month or whatever. I don't know if they'll do that. I could see it in a couple of years maybe, but I don't know.
I think their plan over the next let's assume the console generation is going to be roughly 7 years. Let's assume it's going to be a normal time frame. I think their plan is Game Pass. They are going to have multiple tiers within the next 2 years, guaranteed. That's just going to happen. I don't think it's necessarily going to be like games or games plus DLC. I think it's going to be currently they include games typically with their DLC. I think what's going to be added is games with additional developer channels. So like right now you have Game Pass and everything Microsoft owns and a few third-party things. And then I think the next tier is going to be like Game Pass plus the Ubisoft stuff and Game Pass plus the, insert other developers games. And they're just going to add on tiers that include whether you want to call them channels or other passes or expansions. They'll just add additional libraries onto it.
Right.
But in terms of hardware, I think their goal is to ultimately keep making hardware cheaper and more powerful. So it doesn't matter where you play. I legitimately think they will have a streaming stick available within 2, maybe 3 years.
I think so as well. I think that is
Their goal is not to care about where you're playing or how you're playing. Their goal is just you're playing and you're paying for a service.
Yeah. And I think I'm pretty positive Phil Spencer had an interview many moons ago. I don't know exactly when, but he was talking about how competition, he's not looking at Nintendo or Sony. They're looking at Amazon. They're looking at Google. They're looking at these cloud companies. And, the Fire Stick is super good for everything that the Fire Stick has. I don't have one, so I don't know if that's just streaming channels or if you could play some games on there. I have no idea.
I don't really know if there's much in terms of gaming, but it's mainly just in terms of like media viewing. but you only need a media viewing device for game streaming. So,
Okay.
and Phil Spencer in a recent interview talked about how they used to have a project to have a Microsoft streaming stick that got canceled years ago.
Oh, what's happening?
Um, and he basically talked about they were going to bring that back.
Yeah, they're definitely going to bring it back. I don't see them not bringing it back. I feel like that is
Well,
super
hinted at. I
easy.
shouldn't say talked about, but he hinted that they will be
Right.
potentially looking into that. And I see them having a streaming stick and then a cheap console and a slightly more expensive console. And then other than that, Game Pass and Game Pass Premium or Game Pass Pro or Ultimate or whatever they want to call it. They'll have multiple tiers. Xbox Live is going to be a thing of the past. Xbox Live is just going to be one part of Game Pass.
Yep. And I think they're already kind of trying to get rid of that now with Game Pass Ultimate. It's
Yeah.
called Game Pass Ultimate, not Xbox Live Ultimate. It's hey,
Yeah.
pay us $15 a month, you get Game Pass and Xbox Live.
Yeah, eventually they're gonna just come. That's all gonna be under one name. Maybe they keep it under the Ultimate name, and then they're just gonna add additional ones. I mean, Game Pass Platinum or something like that, and it'll
Yeah.
have all of their games plus all of EA's games plus maybe some additional perks or features that we can't even think of right now.
My hope for their plan, at least over the next few years, is they have 23 studios. Like, Xbox has a lot of game studios, and it really bums me out that they're not making anything. We know about Hellblade 2, and I'm excited to see what that does. I still need to play Hellblade 1, and I probably will before the second one comes out. I'll probably play that one through and then hop into the sequel. We know that's a thing. Obviously, we talked about Forza early development. We talked about Fable, Halo, if that's ever going to be a thing. There's that big rumor of Perfect Dark, if that's going to come back. It bums me out that Rare has made one game for Xbox and their next game is in early development. Like, what the hell? What's Rare doing over there? They made Sea of Thieves. They started working on this one and they're still in early development. What is Xbox not providing resources to their teams? Are they just buying teams and hoping for the best? Like, what is going on? I want games. They have 23 studios now with ZeniMax and Bethesda Studios. 13 previously. I guarantee Phil wants more studios, whether that looks like more indie titles or I mean, I doubt that they're going to go after any more big boys unless big boys want to sell. I guess, come back for that later. I guess I don't know if that's going to happen. I could see it for sure. I can see them going after. I don't see Ubisoft. A lot of people hinted that they might try to buy Ubisoft, but Ubisoft is the one company I feel like you could be a one man show making this console, and Ubisoft wants to support you and have games ready on your launch day. Ubisoft always likes all of the consoles, and they like to have games or anything Ubisoft's name is on, they want to have that on those new consoles. So I doubt that they would get bought, and if they did, it would be no exclusive rights. It would just be, hey, Xbox is giving you money, you guys can split money, kind of like Disney and Sony with Spider-Man. I guess they can split money somehow and use each other for business purposes or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't know what their plan is.
I mean, I ultimately I don't think they're going to be buying another huge studio like an Ubisoft or anything like that anytime soon. What I could see and what I think is probably the place where their catalog could use the most expansion is I see them buying something maybe like a Devolver Digital or maybe a THQ Nordic.
It'd be insane.
I think those are more likely acquisitions just to kind of bolster the games that aren't going to be $70 and things like that. They're going to bolster the games that are going to release around $20 to $40, and they're going to really fill out Game Pass with just badass hits.
Yeah, if Devolver games were on Game Pass, I would be in heaven because I like a lot of their games that they produce for sure. Like My Friend Pedro was super fun. I really enjoyed that one. That was the most recent one I played. They have one that I've been really wanting to play. I think it's Katana Zero is one that I've heard really good things about. So I think buying them would be really big for Xbox and obviously for Devolver. I mean, they're going to get more money, more people to hire, more games to make. So
Yeah,
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
just looking at what Devolver has kind of helped publish, and I mean, keep in mind, Devolver is, essentially a publisher with a bunch of studios under them.
Yeah,
But I mean, you look at the games that they put out in the last handful of years, and it's a lot of the stuff that like Xbox as a studio or as a company as a whole, they're missing. It's stuff like Katana Zero, Ape Out was really awesome. Exit the Gungeon, pretty sweet.
oh,
Carrion was a big one.
Broforce. I
Uh,
just found out that that is a
yeah,
Devolver game.
Broforce.
Didn't know
The
that.
Shadow Warrior games, like Shadow Warrior 3 is coming out. Like cool stuff like that. They have a lot of these cool games that you wouldn't necessarily drop 60 or $70 on, but you'd throw, an easy 20 to 40 at a lot of these games.
Man.
And I think that's the stuff we're going to see. Like, I think that's the next big acquisition that they're going to be looking towards. And Devolver, I say that optimistically. I like Devolver a lot, so I would think that would be a cool one to pick up. But more realistically, I think a company like THQ Nordic would be a more likely scenario, just because of they have a ton of properties under their belt,
They
but
sure do.
they probably don't have the money to flesh all of them out as they would want to.
Yeah, I'm excited to see. I mean, obviously, I've been more on the PlayStation team. I guess I've been more fond of them for over the last 7 years, but ultimately, I like to play video games. I don't really care if it's Nintendo. I don't care if Sega came back with the system. If it's PlayStation, PC, I just want to play games. So I really hope that Xbox does something this generation that makes me sit there and go, oh man, I need to play some more Xbox games. And I feel like we might get to that point. I don't see it next year. I don't even know if I see it 2022. It's probably going to be 2023 is when we see something big from Xbox come out. I feel like they had some missed opportunities. Obviously, Scalebound is still a Microsoft property, from what I understand. I really hope that now that Phil is in this big mindset of just getting games out to people and super pro consumer, I really hope that maybe Scalebound makes its return because I want to play that game.
Why you gotta hurt me like that and bring up Scalebound? Like, why you gotta cut so deep?
I don't mean to, man. I really want to play that game. And I was watching Here Be Gabe on YouTube. I was watching one of his videos like a month ago, and he was talking about games that never came to be, and he brought up Scalebound. And I was like, man, why'd you have to bring up Scalebound? I want to play Scalebound, and it's probably never happening. To be completely honest, I mean, it's
I
probably
mean,
never
that if
happening.
have a gaming wish right now, it it would either be a Final Fantasy VIII full remake like they did with Final Fantasy VII, or it would be Scalebound, like released right now. I would hope that like they Platinum just gets to flat out buy the rights and release it on every console.
I mean, I'm down for that. I don't want to be put on the spot for gaming wish. I don't have a gaming wish right now. I did not come prepared for this lesson in class.
Dude, I daydream about this bullshit way too much. I have gaming wishes out the wazoo.
I usually do, but for some reason, now that you're bringing them up, I don't have any. Like normally, I could easily sit here, and I guarantee you, as soon as we're done recording, they're all gonna show up, and I'm gonna be mad because I know for sure that I've daydreamed about a lot of games, and I just want so many games to come out, and I want to make games. I want to talk to somebody and give them my ideas, even if they're for free, and just make these games, please.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a ton of stuff I would love to see happen, but like that's dude. Yeah, Scalebound was one of those that hurt when that was canceled. That was a game that I was looking forward to so much. And when they said that the reasoning was the game didn't have an audience, it didn't appear to have a group that it was marketing towards and stuff like that, like the most cop out reasons
Yeah,
that
I
could
hate
be
that
given.
reason because
And I mean, Monster Hunter came out right after that.
yep,
And Monster Hunter, there's your audience. Scalebound's audience was Monster Hunter.
yep.
It was those exact people, just instead of being, knight armor looking and like medieval styled, it would be, futuristic dude, wearing badass kind of like, modern tech with this cool little weird cyber dragon and headphones on his iPod or whatever the hell it was, his freaking Zune for all we know. and just rocking out and killing badass monsters.
Well,
Oh,
I wonder what Xbox thought too, because Monster Hunter World was Capcom's number one selling game, I believe, right? Or fastest number one selling game. It sold a lot of copies.
something like that. It broke a ton of records
Yeah,
because, I mean, no, a Monster Hunter game has never done that well.
it was insane.
And I mean, I've loved Monster Hunter for, I don't know, 10, 15 years. And that was the first Monster Hunter that I was able to just like talk with a lot of my friends about. Like the majority of my time. Yeah, the majority of the time I've liked Monster Hunter, it was a super niche thing that only like me and maybe one other friend liked. But that was the first Monster Hunter where, I mean, it was everywhere.
Yeah, it's insane. I really do hope that Scalebound at some point does something. I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens. Maybe Phil is feeling generous and wants to give Platinum the rights and they just release it. Or maybe Phil
Just put up a GoFundMe. Let us all donate $1. We'll all buy it for Platinum.
Kickstarter, GoFundMe. I don't care what it is. Let me put you in a few pennies real quick just to help out.
Seriously, man, that would be awesome.
Kind of off topic, but on topic at the same time in terms of wanting games. Are there any classics you think we'll see come back either for Xbox or for PlayStation or for both or whatever?
I wanted to ask you to clarify that statement because what do you mean by classics that will come back? Do you mean backwards compatibility? Do you mean remakes? Do you just mean franchises that reappear?
It could be remakes. So the one that I had in mind, because it's been everywhere especially after Xbox bought Bethesda, was Metal Gear Solid coming back to PlayStation and PlayStation buying the rights from Konami, because what the fuck are Konami doing over there? They haven't done anything after they released the abomination that was Metal Gear Survive.
I mean, they've done a ton. It's just all been pachinko machines because, gambling is more profitable than gaming, apparently.
I guess so. So I'm hoping for me personally. So remakes are what I was going for, but also in terms of, just franchises coming back, I guess, as well, because we can see, Crash Bandicoot came back last gen. And we saw him get a fourth game that apparently was really good. I haven't played it because I didn't have the time at first when it came out. I was playing other games. But, do we see Spyro come back as a new game? I think Metal Gear for sure is happening. Maybe a Silent Hill. I don't know. I think Metal Gear is a given. I think PlayStation is going to throw whatever kind of schmeckles that they need to at Konami, and I think they get a hold of Kojima and they say, hey, we have your baby back, can you please come work on this game?
That's a dream. That's another gaming wish scenario right there. But I mean, realistically, in a broad sense, I think last generation we saw the spark of remakes. Like, granted, there were remakes on the 360 and on the PS3. There was some HD collections and HD remasters, mainly because a lot of those games came out at a period of time where they were being upresed from consoles that weren't even, meant for modern TV. But then PS4 and Xbox One, I think we saw this spark, this big glint and glimmer of hope in gamers and in investors. I think investors realize that there is a ton of value in back catalogs and all these properties that people haven't played in years but have irrational nostalgia for. I mean, that's basically the solitary reason we saw Spyro and Crash come back.
Right.
It wasn't because they're the most profitable thing on the planet, or they're crazy gigantic franchises. It's they hold a special place in people's hearts, and the Switch kind of reawakened that in people. The Switch kind of brought Nintendo back into prominence after basically snoozing during the entire Wii U generation. So I think we kind of got that spark where the investors saw the profits, gamers saw their nostalgia coming back, and I think that was just the beginning. Maybe there's some people that are already burned out on remakes and remasters and all of that stuff. I don't think we saw it properly done completely last gen. I think we'll see it properly done this gen with, using things like how Crash did their reboot and their sequel, and how Final Fantasy VII Remake did theirs. I think that's what we're in for. We're going to see, Metal Gear Solid 1 again, but it's not going to be just some HD upres. It's not going to be some basic, remaster. It's going to be like Final Fantasy VII Remake, or
Hope so.
like Demon Souls. It's going to be a big deal. And if I could see Metal Gear Solid 1 in the graphics from 4 or 5, like, oh my god, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's definitely one I hope for as well. I want that. I want that so bad because I was watching someone stream Metal Gear. It was, I don't know. It was either 1, 2, or 3. I don't remember which one it was.
It's one of hundreds of hours of gameplay.
I want to say it was Metal Gear 2. I'm like 98% sure it was Metal Gear 2. And I was watching gameplay and I was like, man, I need this game on a PS5 today because I guess the other dream game I have that I hope isn't a dream, and maybe this is why Rare has been silent and hasn't been doing anything. I really want another Conker's Bad Fur, or not Conker's Bad Fur Day, but Conker's. I will take a Bad Fur Day remake, but I would love just another Conker's game.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see a Conker, whatever they choose to subtitle it. Like,
Yeah,
that would be. I think we're in the method of, instead of, to use Ubisoft as like a punching bag, Ubisoft kind of burnt themselves out and damaged their reputation by just throwing out an Assassin's Creed every year. And it kind of, it burned out the developers, it burned out the public on the perception of the franchise as a whole. Arguably, it did irreparable damage to the franchise. I think instead of seeing companies try to churn out one game every year that is just a slight iteration or update or setting change of the previous one, I think we're going to see this year is the new game. Next year is the remake / remaster. The year after that is a new game. And it's going to be this like alternating current of, what do we see? And it's going to be something new, something old, back and forth until, the end of the gen, or until people get sick of it, really. Like,
yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I can see them doing that for sure. I feel like that wouldn't be too bad of a business model. Like, hey, here's a new game, and hey, if you didn't play the old ones, here's Bad Fur Day remake, and now here's a new Conker's game.
well, especially like it also varies differently because they have a lot of leeway in terms of making different games allows the developers to do something new and be engaged with a new property, new setting, new art style. But it also gives them a wide range of opportunity for what they're doing, because like a remake versus a remaster, and I know those terms are used borderline interchangeably and they're super muddied,
Yeah,
but like whether it's just like the Crash Bandicoot collection that came out that had 1, 2, and 3, and they were all they were completely rebuilt from the ground up, but the core experience was the exact same, basically.
right.
That is basically what I consider a remake. And then, or pardon, a remaster. And then a remake was like Final Fantasy VII, like completely different. It's a reimagining of what the original idea was, in the way that either the director wished they could have done 20 years ago, or just in a way that meets our modern standards.
For sure. Well, I'm gonna do the last topic. I threw it in there after it happened because I need to talk about it, and I want to talk about it with someone that isn't an ass about it.
Because again, you want to hurt me. You just want to cut deep every time.
Listen, for one, it hurt both of us. It hurt me in a way that I wasn't expecting it to, because of Final Boss and because of the things that we had planned and behind the scenes. But it also hurts because now I have to sit here and listen to people on Twitter and listen to the bullshit that comes with games delays. So I'll go ahead and bring it up. I'll bring up some things and then we'll talk about it. So obviously Cyberpunk 2077 is delayed. This is now the third. So it went from April to September. So that's one, and then to November. Okay, so yeah, this is the third one, as far as I know. For some reason, people keep thinking this game's been delayed for like 20 years. I don't know if that's just because Witcher 3 was delayed, I think, like 5 or 6 times, but whatever. I'm sorry that, CD Projekt Red cares about their games and are very they like everything to be perfect, even if it's not perfect at launch, which I don't think any game has been, but that's what they go for. They like everything to be close to perfect. Um I didn't realize this either. So obviously with the delay, I mean no one should be happy about it. I mean delays suck, I mean you don't have to sit there and be cheerful unless you hate the game for some reason. You're like, yeah, get delayed, I hate you, then you're a weird person. But I don't think delays should necessarily be happy. But on the other side of that, I'm not super like upset about it. Delays happen. They clearly they had crunch, and then magically 2 weeks later, hey, crunch is over, game's gold, we're good to go. See you guys in November. And it was like, oh, that was really fast. That's really odd. Is everything okay over there? And then, hey, we need 21 more days because we didn't realize we got to test this game on 9 different systems, which is also something that I didn't even realize as just a gamer. I like to think of myself as very informed, and I know in quotation marks how games are made and how gaming works and all that fun stuff. But I didn't even think about they have to make sure the game plays on Xbox One, One S, and One X, and then Series S, Series X, PS4, PS4 Slim. I don't know if that had a different processor. I can't remember. PS4 Pro, PC, Stadia. Like I didn't even think about how many games they have to ship and have all those SKUs. Like it wasn't a thought process in my head when this game was being made. Like it wasn't something that came across as, oh man. So when they said that in their message, I was like, oh, that makes way more sense now. I didn't even think about the 9 games. And then something that I didn't realize that was happening, which I guess I should have assumed, because for some reason there's really weird parts of gamers out there that like to do this weird thing where they send death threats, which is super unfortunately common. I feel like is starting to become common in the gaming space with things
common
that happen.
Common and cowardly and childish. But yeah.
And it's super weird that that's what people refer to. Like, hey, you delayed a game, I'm gonna come kill you. Like what is going on in your mind? A game was delayed. Like these guys already, CD last year said, hey, no crunch is going to happen, don't worry about it. Unfortunately had to crunch because unfortunately a lot of game companies have to, and it's something that I can't even talk about because I've never been a part of that before. I don't know what crunch is. I mean I know what it is, but I haven't been there. I don't know exactly what crunch time is. And they had to do that in this really weird time that is 2020, and then to do that and to be able to celebrate for a little bit, and then hey, now we got to delay our game. Like those developers don't deserve any hate. It sucks, it sucks that the game got delayed. Yeah, I get it, but you have to look at the positives as it's a good thing. I mean, Cyberpunk has been talked about for 7 years now. It's been in people's minds for a while. CD cares about their games a lot. I mean, a lot. Witcher 3 has a ton of content, and for that matter, a ton of free content. And Witcher 3 is a very good game. Witcher 2 was a very good game. I didn't play 1, so I can't speak on that. And Cyberpunk's going to be a very good game, too. I don't know why when this game got delayed, everyone freaked out, and they're like, oh, the game's going to be bad. I don't know. I don't know. I had to get some things off my chest. What are your thoughts on the delay?
I mean, ultimately, yes, delays suck. No one likes them. No one has to be happy about it. But I mean, in all honesty, like, I would rather a game come out and be the way that they wanted it than come out and be a buggy mess. And even though I would not play it on a launch day Xbox One or a launch day PS4, there are people who do that. Like you and I are privileged. We keep up with the technology. We tend to buy new systems when they come out. We tend to upgrade when, upgrades are available, stuff like that. But I mean, I grew up incredibly poor. Like if this was me when I was, 12 to 15, anywhere in the middle school to early high school area, like I would not be getting a new console every time one came out. I'd be getting them, maybe in the first big sale after, maybe in the
Yeah.
next year. So like I understand there are a ton of people playing these on old hardware, and it's going to chug on an old PS4 or an old Xbox One. Like
It
it's
is.
going to be, it's going to be a pain in the butt. So optimization wise, like you can make arguments and say, oh, they could have foreseen this, they could have had that type of forethought. Well, I hate to break it to anyone that needs this, but it's 2020, and I think we've all had one hell of a year. And this little thing happened, really weird. I don't know if anyone else noticed it around like February or March, but it was called a pandemic,
Yep.
and it screwed up everything. Like
Yeah, everything.
anyone who says, oh, they could have foreseen this, they could have figured that out, they should have known that ahead of time. No, they couldn't have, because every plan that everyone had stopped, in sometime in February or March.
Yeah.
And depending on where you live, I understand some places handled it better, some handled it worse. um you know no matter what, even if you handled it the best way possible, it still had some sort of effect.
Right.
And when you have a studio that has, hundreds of people, giant marketing arms and divisions and agreements and investors, I mean, you think it's difficult to schedule a hangout time with a friend or making a podcast with a buddy. Imagine trying to coordinate hundreds of people, like one wrench thrown anywhere in the operation, it has ripple effects. And COVID is by far the biggest disruption that we are going to see to pretty much any industry in our adult lives. So
For sure.
while I'm not happy about it, I'm glad that they're taking whatever time they need. I hope that there aren't incredible crunch horror stories that come out of it, but I'm sure there will be. Like that's inevitable. I've worked for companies where, I've never worked for a gaming company. I can't say I've undergone quote unquote crunch,
Right.
but I've worked with companies where I had mandatory overtime and I had to work 80 plus hours a week mandatory. So, I mean, I may not know specifically game developer crunch, but I know what it's like to have your schedule doubled down and hammered in and not be able to take PTO from, October through December because of the holidays. And you need to, you have to be available 24/7 during that time. It sucks. I wish everyone well. I hope all the devs, are properly compensated. I hope their Metacritic score is awesome and everyone gets a badass bonus. And hopefully it doesn't burn out too many people, but inevitably that's something that is going to happen, and it happens in every industry. It's just become a little more of an issue in the gaming industry in terms of like a public facing issue. So I don't know, if we get a great game out of it and people ended up, being treated well throughout the process, I don't care. Whatever, delay it longer, put it into January. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised when they. So first of all, they got me real good. I was scrolling through Twitter, and the day before they announced they were delaying it, I was in Discord playing GTFO, and I brought it up to one of our buddies, Urban, and I said, "Hey man, we're literally we are 3 weeks away from Cyberpunk," is what I told him. I don't know why I had to bring it up, but him and I have been very excited for this game. I brought it up. I said, dude, we're only 3 weeks away. And he was like, yeah, just imagine if they just joked with us and they were like, oh, delayed 2 days. And then the next day woke up, went through Twitter, delayed 21 days. I messaged him instantly and I was like, why did we talk about this? Why did we do this?
So you heard it here first. Glenn cursed it. He ruined it all. He is some sort of weird prodigy of 2020, foretelling all of the terribleness that's happening. Let's get rid of him.
Dude. And so the message, it's that white. Oh my Lord. Getting tired. It's that yellow background with all the black words. And the caption was, we have a very important message to share with you. And I was like, oh, maybe they're like, hey, we're really excited. This game's going to be really cool. Maybe they moved the release date up. Maybe they're like, hey, Call of Duty, guess what? We're going to release right with you. And I read the message and I was like, oh, it got delayed 21 days. Oh, okay. And
You're so,
I mean, to be fair, like it's December. I mean, this could have been January. This could have been February. It could have been March. Like I think a lot of people are blowing it out of proportion. Like it is 3 weeks. It is 21 days that we have to wait. I mean, yeah, it sucks. Delays suck. Delays happen. Delays are never going to be fun. You should never cheer on a delay. However, I would like to play a game that is at least semi-finished. I've heard lots of people talk about, most recent example is Watch Dogs Legion. That game has a lot of bugs in it, and the game came out, and they didn't release a day one patch on PC until Friday, and the game came out Thursday. So, I mean, games nowadays are just coming out. Avengers, obviously, you would know more than I would, but I've heard people, playing it, and they're like, this game has so many bugs. I don't know why this game released. This game should have been delayed until, I don't know, sometime next year, maybe for next gen consoles or something like. And maybe that's a Marvel and Square deal. Maybe it had to be 2020 or never or something. I don't know. I don't know the ins and outs of gaming, but at the end of the day, I'd rather have a game that is finished and the most polished that it can be, rather than, hey, here's our game on November 19th. We're not going to have bug patches ready for a month, because at that point I'm not going to play you for the 3 weeks anyways until the patch is out. So just release the release the game when all the stuff's ready.
yeah. Well, and I mean, especially in the holiday season, at the start of a new generation, you have other stuff to try. Like,
Yeah.
if it's not good, you're going to walk away from it, and you may come back to it, and maybe it's fantastic, but that could be pushed out 2, 3, 6 months. Like, that could be massively damaging. And a lot of gaming companies and investment is based on, I mean, sadly, it shouldn't be, but it is based on how the game is rated and how it's received. And, if they get a shitty Metacritic score, like if they pull a No Man's Sky, and keep in mind, No Man's Sky is the exception. Most games don't have the luck that No Man's Sky had. Yeah, they don't have that. But if they came out and they got bashed and they got like somewhere between a 40 and a 60 Metacritic score, and then they put in some hard work, and at any point between 3 to 6 months later, they release some big patch and it's 10 times better and a ton of good reviews flood in, that doesn't matter, because all of the profit and investment was already decided on day one after that, that launch and reviews and the first few weeks and all of that of sales and the first quarter and all of that. So, it's one of those things where, we don't know those agreements as fans, as just general gamers. We don't know the conditions of that. So it's a crappy situation, but at the end of the day, I I want the best game possible every time, even if it means I have to wait longer for it. I think the thing that the industry has to get better at is making sure their people are taken care of in that time, when something needs to be delayed or pushed back. And, you know, maybe this will be an example. Yeah, exactly. Maybe this will be an example of a time where, a company needs to reflect and plan things out a little better or do things a little better. But at the end of the day, I'm giving them more leeway than most because of COVID.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I agree with that, and I also give them a little bit more because I know that CDPR makes good games. Whether you're a fan of Witcher 3 or not, you can't deny that that game isn't at least a good game, and it's a good RPG. And that company cares about their games, and they care about the content that they produce for those games. And I feel like, Cyberpunk is no different. Cyberpunk is going to be a CDPR game that is just really good. I'm happy. I'm not happy about the delay, but it does give me more time to actually play my games in November and kind of process them all and get them ready for certain things that we have in the works to talk about and to discuss.
Yeah.
And it gives me more time. Obviously, it makes December more stressful and more pat than I would have wanted it to, but it just makes it more fun for what's going to come in December, I guess, too.
Yeah. I mean, it shifts things around, but I would rather have December get a little more packed than have November continue to be as packed as it was.
I agree.
Like November has a lot, and realistically, when the next gen stuff comes out, I want some time to savor it. I want time to migrate all of my stuff from my last gen console to my next gen console. I want time to relax and play, um, play games at a reasonable pace rather than feeling like I need to rush through something to get to the next thing. And I mean, I'm also an MMO player. Like WoW's expansion is coming out in late November now. I believe they announced the release date.
Did they finally announce
So
the release date?
yeah, they delayed it and didn't put a date on it, and I believe they announced today or maybe yesterday. But yeah, they basically delayed it indefinitely, and then today they were like, okay, well, we delayed it. It didn't end up being quite as long.
Oh
It
yeah.
was originally going to be October 27th, I believe, and it got delayed to like November 23rd ish.
Yeah, 23rd. I'm on their Twitter right now.
Yeah, so I mean that like it was whatever the amount of delay they needed to put in the final work and bits and pieces. And if it comes out in a better state for that, I'm all for it. And it also pushed it away from next gen, so I can play my next gen games for a few weeks. Then I can get into a little bit of WoW, and then I can kind of have that rotation of when I want to play some WoW and some grindy stuff with the friends, I can
Right.
hop on my PC. When I want to relax and just have some me downtime, I can hop on the TV and hop on the PS5.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I did lie. I was gonna end on that topic, but I forgot to ask this earlier, and now I'm gonna have to figure this out. Are you keeping your PlayStation 4 or is getting rid of it?
I am keeping it.
You keeping it?
This is the first generation, especially after the news about Assassin's Creed Syndicate today. Um, I This will be the first time where I'm at a point in my life where, like, I'm not a teenager trying to afford the next console or whatnot. So
Right.
I don't need to sell my console to be able to get the next one or anything like that. So this one, I see the PS4 as like it has a gigantic library. I literally have hundreds of games on my PS4. I have the 1 terabyte PS4 Pro fully filled up, and then I also have an 8 terabyte external drive on it that's like 90% full. So
You also have the Spider-Man one, right?
hell yeah.
Okay, I couldn't remember. So nice little
Yeah,
collector piece.
I mean, besides just the collectability of that one, it's also I see the PS4 as like a good, you know, generation of games that's going to be remembered for a long time, and I want to have that saved, and I want to have all those games cataloged.
Understandable. I was pretty torn. I couldn't decide if I wanted to sell mine or keep it. I am gonna get rid of it because I don't ever play. Like I'm not super into back and pat, so it's not really a go to thing for me. I like it here and there. Like if I'm in the mood, usually on my PC, I'll find old games that I haven't played for and I don't know years, and I'm like, oh, that'd be kind of fun to play again. And then I realize I play it for like an hour, and I'm like, oh, I don't care to play it anymore. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah, if I didn't have kids or I was at a different time in my life, I'd probably sell it, but at this point, like, it's gonna go on a different TV in our house, and the kids will end up playing that a lot more often. Whereas now, like, when I wanna play the PS4, I kick the kids off and they get to go play the Switch for a while. So now it'll be when I wanna play on the PS5, I kick the kids off that, and they can play the Switch or the PS4.
And then I guess the last thing, because I didn't squeeze it in, I am a little bummed that Far Cry 6 got delayed as well. No release date on that, but
Yeah, I mean,
which
eh.
whatever.
I mean, I'm excited for it, but in all fairness, we know nothing about that game besides one really cool trailer.
And I really hope that's Voss as a kid, but it's not, and I'm bummed.
I mean, yeah, I hope that's the path they're going down, but I mean, that's a delay that I don't mind. Things like Wolfenstein games and Far Cries, I don't want those coming out, in the holidays around some of the other heavy hitters. I
Yeah,
want those coming out, other times of the year, spread throughout, kind of, giving me time to get to them.
for sure. And I mean, hey, delays happen, so it is what it is. But any last things you need to throw in?
No, I think we covered a good bit. I think especially with all the events of the next 2 to 4 weeks, we're gonna have a ton to talk about. So covered a lot, but we got a lot to build up for our next outing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is our first episode. Well, number 0, but it's our first one that we're doing. Part of our pilot one. I feel like 2 hours is pretty good. The next time that everyone will see us is hopefully a week after next gen starts. So for us, because sorry Xbox, we don't start till the 12th of November. Um, we're probably going to record on the 20th or 21st. You can probably expect us to upload that sometime between the 22nd through the 27th. Probably on 22nd or 23rd, to be honest. But I'll keep you guys posted on that. And then obviously, like I said earlier, December is going to be it's going to be a mess, but it's going to be a fun mess. We got a lot of stuff planned, and I got to figure out writing and all that fun stuff for all that. But yeah, the next time you guys will see us will be in about 3 weeks. Give us 2 weeks till next gen. Play next gen for a week, and we'll come back and talk about how everything's going. Obviously, no reviews or anything fun like that I know of, unless something comes up for like Spider-Man or something that might be pretty fun. But it's probably just going to be a discussion between you and I, and hopefully a couple more friends will be with us that time.
Yeah. And if anyone has any feedback, I mean, keep in mind we're both super new at this. I mean, we're not doing anything too special. We're basically having the conversations that we would have had anyway, just in podcast form. So, if there's any technical issues or hiccups here and there, or just changes or improvements you'd like to see, let us know.
Which I'm sure there's plenty.
Probably.
I would assume there's going to be a few. I expect this to be a chunky boy uploading and having all that fun stuff. So
Yeah, but I mean, at the end of the day, the purpose behind it was, we're going to have these conversations anyway. Might as well record them.
Yeah, easy for us.
Right.
Right on. Well, that's going to do it for this one, guys. So we'll catch you guys in about 3 weeks from, when you guys are listening from this one, 2 weeks. For us, it'll be 3 weeks. But for you guys, 2 weeks. So we'll see you guys on the next one. Have a good night, everyone.
Have a good one.